Aloha and welcome. In this video, we're going to be talking about access control models, specifically the DAC and MAC models. So let's go ahead and open up our textbooks here. So you can see we're in Chapter 2, Section 12. We're looking at access control models, both the DAC and the MAC. So we're going to start out with the Discretionary Access Control, or DAC as it's called. So a lot of you are familiar with types of systems that use DAC, so Windows, Mac, Linux, Unix, these systems all use DAC, Discretionary Access Control. In this one, you've got a user who has that owns an object essentially, and they're able to set their permissions on those objects as they want to. They set up the ability for other people, known as subjects, so other subjects may want access to an object. The object's owner is the one that's going to be assigning the permissions to those people. So we use something called an access control list, an ACL. You'll hear a lot about ACLs throughout security, but an access control list, it's that list that defines a subject's access to an object. So an object, think of as something that you want to give access to. Let's say it's a file, maybe it's a directory. So if a subject wants uh, access to it, they're going to need the owner of it to allow access to that object through an access control list. So when you think of Windows, you have a file, you can right click on it, go down to properties, set up sharing on it. That's kind of how you define these ACLs. So when you enter those permissions in there, that becomes part of the access control list. Let's see. So DAC is the access control model used by default in most operating systems that you're used to, including Linux, Unix, Windows. So down here, we can see the Windows version of it. So if you've ever done a right click on a file or a folder and then gone down to properties, you'll see that there's a security tab. And in the security tab, you can grant all kinds of control. You can do full control. You can do modify, read and execute, read, write, and then you've got special permissions. So, and you can also, if it's a folder, you can control whether or not those permissions cascade down to subfolders. So we've got some questions here, some mix and match. We've got some, decide which one. And then we're going to get to the mandatory access control, or MAC. So MAC has got to be one of the most overused acronyms out there. We've got MAC that everyone knows from Apple. So it's not that kind of MAC. It's we talked about in recent chapters about the MAC address. We were talking about geofencing using a MAC address or something like that, and that's the number that's etched into your network cards. It's a long it's a long hexadecimal number that uniquely identifies a piece of networking equipment. So you've got part of it is the vendor's ID, and then part of it is just the number for which one they're using. So anyway, those are all unique things, but that's not the kind of the MAC address we're talking about here. We're talking about mandatory access control MAC. So this is an access control model in which an access to an object is mandated by a set of rules and classification labels. So a classification label represents a security domain. So a security domain, which they also call a realm of security, that's a collection of subjects and objects that share a common security policy. Okay, that's very important. So a security domain is a collection of subjects and objects that share a common security policy. So you've got a subject, they're going to be assigned a clearance level. Maybe it's secret, maybe it's top secret. Then you're going to have objects that are assigned a classification level. And the MAC security policy defines a subject's access privileges to an object based on the subject's clearance level and an object's classification level. Okay, keep that in mind. Subjects have clearance levels. People have clearance levels, like you have a top secret clearance, then you have an object's classification label. Okay. So central authority assigns the clearance levels, the classification labels, and defines the security policies. So the example they use here is users assigned secret clearance level, files assigned top secret classification label. So a MAC security policy denies a user that only has the security clearance to access the top secret classification. Okay. So remember that subjects have clearance levels, users have clearance levels, objects have classification labels, okay? So So, in this being the case, MAC is the most restrictive access control model, and it's used typically by governments and militaries. So that's where data is, meant to be kept secret, and that's the highest, that's the priority. So there is a version of this. We do have, I think, in SELinux. I think we talk about that in a minute, but SELinux has this type of access model, but we're going to have to go and take a look down at the bottom. In the meantime, you've got all these mix and match. You've got your 1 through 5 here that you can select true and false on. And yeah, here's SELinux. So we do have SELinux. This is interesting because to increase the security for confidential information on Linux machines, the NSA, the National Security Agency, they developed SELinux. So SELinux is a security architecture that supports Mac implementation on Linux. So it was released to the open source community back in 2000. Now it's going to be in the Linux kernel, and you can find it in Red Hat Enhanced Linux as well as Fedora Linux. So yeah, so that's something that's available in the, I guess you could say Linux is the freeware domain, so the non-paid versions of operating systems. So anyway, this is it for our two different models. Remember, we've got DAC and Mac. And the things to remember in DACs, it's just like Windows. You're using access control lists, ACLs. Then when we've got Macs, we're talking about clearances and classification labels. That's the main difference between the two. So yeah, go ahead and answer all these questions and make sure that you understand it, pretty well in and out. And if you have any other questions, as always, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to talk with you about this. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Aloha.